Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Ozarks Film Foundry's Creator Series. Thank you for joining us here live and online. We appreciate all of you. Appreciate your time and your interest in film and what we're doing here at the Foundry, which is forging the film frontier. I'm here tonight with Jeff Clinkenbeard, screenwriter, who has quite an illustrious background. He has written for FRASIER and for Friends.
Helped write Cheers and Frasier.
Oh, forgive me.
That's okay. No,
Cheers,
that's
FRASIER and CHEERS, which are two great series, wonderful series.
Friends is good too. They could have used me, but
yes, they could. Wonderful series. While you were writing about CHEERS, I think I was drinking there.
Very possibly. Yes. Yeah, but you've got that cleared up now. You have a good sponsor.
Yes, we do.
How many pins do you have? Do you have what year yet?
No pins. No pins that I know of.
Okay.
No.
I have my afternoon sobriety pin.
Jeff here is a comedy writer as well as a sitcom writer and has written many other things and has been active as a screenwriter for many years. And so tonight, he's going to share with us the insights that he has about the screenwriting profession. And that's what the Creator Series is set up to do, is to share with our audience deeper insights about how these professions contribute to the making of episodic television, to films, to cinema in general. And so we hope that this teaching, these pearls of wisdom that you share with us tonight, will go far into the world and populate the minds of people everywhere.
Sit down, be seated, definitely.
Laying it on thick.
Blow your mind.
So I'm going to let Jeff here introduce himself a bit, maybe a little bit of opening remarks here. Tell us about yourself, your career, what led you to writing, what was the impetus?
Well, really the impetus to be a writer was nobody wanted me as an actor, because everybody starts out wanting to be a star, right? I'm just going to be a movie star. I'll go to Los Angeles and I'll be a movie star, or I'll go to New York. So I, out of high school, graduated, set in 1977. Glendale, said goodbye to everybody and went to New York. Now, this was when New York was the real New York. This is 1977.
Not the Disney version, yeah.
Not the
Times
Disney
Square
version.
was really like Triple X and all the rest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, and that's where I thought I would do some of my best work.
Stag Films, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, oh yeah, I should have done that. But anyway.
This is a PG-13, PG-14, maybe TV mature, but go ahead.
Okay, double X then? Is that what you're saying?
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet.
Okay. So now I don't have a bit now. No.
So you was in New York. You went to New York and you was going to do acting.
So it was an acting endeavor, right? To become a star. And over time, and this is from that moment all the way up to when I was helping write the television shows, more and more people were more interested in me as a writer than as an actor. Now, as a performer, that's a little different. I'm making a distinction because I was in a Chicago City Limits, which was New York's longest running comedy review. So improvisational comedy, I could master, if I may, if you can ever do that. But I was better at that than acting. In fact, I had an acting teacher once, and we did this improvisational experience, and she was like blown away. And then she gave me some text to read. And at the end, she said, I have never seen an actor so disconnected from text in my life.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, I've let it go almost. Anyway, I think she doesn't teach anymore. No. Well,
you're here.
She does it at women's prison.
You're standing over.
Yeah. Can I talk about women's prisons? Is that under the
That's
auspices?
Fine, yes.
Okay. Well,
we don't
lesbian stuff is fine.
We don't have a broadcast delay, so this is all live.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you tell people? Leave the room? I don't know.
No. What you hear is what's happening.
Right. So once you become interested in writing, whether it's novels or plays or short stories or whatever, screenplays, then story becomes your God, because that's the thing that people come away from. That's the thing that people say, oh yeah, it was all razzmatazzy, but there was no story. Because story that's the foundation for everything. And like, for example,
let's talk about that. What is story? Because a lot of people sometimes think the joke or the quip is the story, and it's not at all. And a lot of people talk about story in very general terms, but it's never really that well defined. What is a good story? What is a story?
It's almost always character transformation. A person who
it's
has
Luke Skywalker.
Two things. Well, anybody, it doesn't matter. They have two things. And why this resonates as a story is because it often defines us as human beings at our most uncomfortable, unhappy parts of life. They have two things: an incredible desire and a misbelief that is standing in the way of them fulfilling that. And that's a dilemma, and not a problem. A problem can be solved, right?
Yeah, of course.
But a dilemma cannot be solved except through a transformation of the character and seeing what it is they have been misbelieving about. And they can't change that, but they can see it in a new way. And that unlocks the dilemma.
And dilemmas are ancient. I mean, since the very beginning of man around the campfire, people have told the stories, their dilemmas around the campfire. This is what happened, and this is how I got out of the situation. And then we all learn from the story. So stories have become our currency, right?
Right. And the trick is obviously to pick a single misbelief and a single desire and how they interact. Because the best stories are about one thing that affects everything else. So when you come away from a piece and you're not satisfied, it's probably because it was more episodic, just one thing after another, which reflects our own sort of crazy quilt coincidental lives, right? They just unfold.
So these stories, these sort of like sequence of events lack resonance. They lack depth, right?
It's not so much they don't resonate because coincidence doesn't carry meaning. You know, Mark Twain said, of course, truth is stranger than fiction. Fiction has to make sense.
And coincidence carries within it maybe chaos or things happening for no reason at all. So we don't really respond to them very well.
Right. Well, they reflect the part of life we can't have any control over. The part you can have control over is transforming yourself. So the trick is to balance the internal transformation that the character is going through with the external plot. To your point, people think the quippy joke is the story. It's not. It's how the story, though, the theme, the subtext, the transformation step by step by step is communicated. Because nobody wants to be told what's going on. They want to be shown what's going on.
So you were starting out as an actor, and then you noticed you resonated with storytelling, with making stories, right? How did you recognize that you had the story, that gift inside of you to make stories?
Well, I was starving as an actor.
And some people would make drawings on the sidewalk. You made stories instead.
Yeah, right. Not exactly drawings on the sidewalk, but sometimes
caricatures.
Sometimes I would outline my body as if I were dead, and then send them to my mom.
Didn't pay as well as stories.
Well, it did because my mom sent me money.
Okay.
No, actually, at one point I was talking to my dad about all these different. Oh my, this is happening. This is happening. This is happening. At one point, my dad said, "How much encouragement can you afford?" And you just sort of realize, okay, well, I'm in the industry, and so I'm going to pursue the writing aspect.
Well, let's talk about that. It's very curious because a lot of folks who are thinking about having careers in entertainment, show business, screenwriting, they need that first break. They have to go between aspiration, wanting to be a screenwriter, to actually becoming a paid one.
Hold on, I'm going to stop you right there because I read a great quote. The desire to write, which is not accompanied by writing, is not the desire to write. You have to write.
Sounds very like
you have to write.
Cow.
Well, but you have to write first. You can't just show up and say, "Hey, I want to be a writer. I want you to produce my screenplay." Well, where is it? Well, I haven't really written it yet. Okay, well, go write it, make it great, not good, and then come back. And nobody wants to do the hard work of the writing because it is very, very hard work. Because when I started at Paramount, the writing department, which were getting scripts from agents, actual agents, nothing over the transom. It was a 10-page pass, meaning they would read the first 10 pages and then decide if they're going to read the rest or pass. By the time I left Paramount, it was a 2-page pass. You had to grab the reader, who's seen it all, in 2 pages. Well, that means every single word, every single moment, comma, everything has to be exactly right. Well, that's very tough. That's a reiterative process.
And so by the time you're ready to perform at that level, you've already put in your dues. You've written a lot of words you've thrown away. You've developed some craft.
Yes, and it is a craft. It's a craft. It's artful in its execution sometimes, but yeah, it's craft. Because the story transformations have wayfinders, right? They're not. It's not rigor. It's not and it's not like 13 pages in, do this, 25 pages in, do that. Some people write that way, and sometimes their scripts are good, but the more inventive ones stick to the way that we transform, which is basically the human condition. Like nobody ever gives up on their dream until they realize it's absolutely unachievable, and then they have to change their relation to their dream. It's just not going to happen. That person you love doesn't love you back. They're never going to love you back. What are you going to do? Well, first of all, you're going to struggle to try to make them, and then it's going to become, you're going to be in jail. And then after that, it's the suffering, the realization, but you don't suffer until you've struggled. And it's like, they're never going to love me. I'm suffering. And then you move on. You change your relationship to the dilemma so that it can change.
I mean, that sounds like a great template for drama, for sure. Maybe how does comedy differ from that? Because
it doesn't. It's that, but plus funny. That's why it's so difficult to do, because it has to fulfill all the criteria of great storytelling. And I like to say this, comedy and drama are not symmetrical. You do not have to cry at a great drama. You must laugh at a great comedy. That's what makes it a comedy. The laugh, the reaction. If it's a smile, it's witty, right? It's humorous. But comedy is laughing. And when I was on the TV shows, and nobody knows that until it happens, because people would pitch jokes and people would say, I don't know, it's pretty funny, but like, I'm going to take out comedy insurance. Okay, great. We'll see. And in front of a live studio audience, sometimes we had to rewrite, because even at that level of expertise, Cheers and Frasier, you're just not sure. You're pretty sure, but until the audience confirms that by laughing, you don't know. It's a little like Schrodinger's cat.
Wow, that's actually pretty interesting. So yeah, even at that level, you don't know. It's a very ephemeral
You don't
thing
know.
to make people laugh.
Yeah, everybody in the room laughed. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been in the script, and wouldn't, Jimmy Burrows wouldn't have directed it, and we wouldn't put it up in front of a live audience. But then when they don't laugh, we're like, well, okay, didn't
Wow.
fly.
Now I got to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know this. I know I do. I've never really heard all the details. I've heard some detail, but not enough about how these shows work. How does a sitcom work? How does writing work on a sitcom show?
Yeah, and there's a lot of misconceptions, like, oh, do you write for this character and do you write for that character? No, everybody writes for the show. You write for all the characters. But the ratio, and this is about story really, the ratio was, and on these are on top shows, and especially with a number of stars that have to be accommodated in a storyline. The story would take 3 months. The writing of the script, 3 weeks. Because once you have the story, you know what this joke has to do to propel the story. So you find the funny joke for that, and that may take an hour or two, or you may just, put a placeholder there, please, and keep going. But if you don't know what joke has to be there to propel the story, because you don't know what the story is, well, then any joke would do, right? There's no way to judge. There's no judgment backboard to throw it against to say, oh, is this good?
Yeah. I've heard people say sometimes that writing is kind of like sculpting in time or in 3 dimensions. You're building you're building the plane as you're flying it. You're telling the joke, that's your skeleton. Maybe those are your beats, but then you're having to like actually craft story to get to the joke without it being contrived, right, or feeling artificial.
Well, and it should come out of the situation. It should come out of the character motivation, and on situation comedies, you have built-in characters, but also you have built-in conflict, which is never to be resolved. Once Frasier and his father start to get along, they don't have a story. And you notice it with, of course, love affairs, like they go like a love interest between 2 characters who are friends. Well, once they become lovers, now who cares anymore? The tension's gone. In real life, you're happy, like the person loves you, great. But on television, it's like, well, okay, that's like everything else in the world. So you keep those, and so when I'm working with people who are developing their situation comedies, I say, what are the conflicts? And make sure that you have different kinds of conflicts, right? So that, and never let those go. That's your source of comedy. That's your source of storytelling, because we only reveal our character really when we're in conflict. Otherwise, we're just coasting.
And inside of that, we have an infinite amount of comedy that we'll never exhaust. Because with sitcom, it is a formula. There's something of a formula or a genre, aspect about sitcom, right? But also it's not exhaustible. It's infinite.
Because the human condition is infinite, because we're just numbskulls bumping around. And every time you turn around, but if you think about the great classic comedies from Greek theater, that we're all dealing with the same things: jealousy, ambition, misconception,
frustration.
Exactly right.
The women, can't live with him, can't live without him thing. Yeah, that's ancient.
Yeah, well, I can, but anyway, yeah,
me too. I love him. I love him. Love you.
Yes, fine, everybody. But so that the human condition is the key, and that's one of the reasons why you have this concept of gallows humor, because and gallows humor by definition is a joke about something which is sad or tragic. That's a release. We can't just be depressed all the time about these horrible things that are happening. Somewhere there's going to be a moment of humanity shine through, and that's going to be wrapped in blackness. And so that's where the gallows humor comes from. Bertolt Brecht was teaching students, during a horrible time in the world's history. And his students said, will we sing during the dark times? And he said, yes, we will sing about the dark times.
With
So
a smile on her face and
yeah,
appreciate the little things and absurdities all along
the
the way.
absurdities all along the way. So there's always going to be a chance for humor, which is a great thing, and it's one of our defense mechanisms. But it means that you have to have the conflict, you have to have the things going wrong, and the anticipation of the person watching, because they full well know in their life, oh, when you think you're going to go into the job interview and it's just you're going to nail it, or you're going to go on that first date, it's going to be beautiful, or the house you bought is just going to be a dream. Everybody's like, oh, I bet not, because I know in my own life I thought that about my life, and then it all gets upended. And that's the funny part.
And oftentimes those are exactly the opposite of what you desired or what the character desires. And therein is some of the comedy.
Yeah. So going back to how so the story is developed.
Yeah.
Right. And that all those beats are, taken into consideration. And sometimes jokes are generated like that might specifically work for a particular beat or moment in the overall story.
But you're not necessarily talking about like a writing room like they do with The Simpsons.
No, it's a writing room.
It is a writing room.
Yeah, it's everybody pounces on the story.
Yeah, so maybe for folks that don't know what a writing room is, maybe share a little bit about that, what that is and how that works with the show.
It's the team of, when I was on Cheers, it was 14 writers who are responsible. They're the producers. When you see on television producer credits, those are writer credits. Television is writer driven. And so they're called producers because that's what they do. They produce the script that's going to, service the stars and sell the advertising and have people showing up by the millions. So their responsibility is to write that script. And the story is the hardest part. That's why the whole team contributes to it. And as I was saying, you can go along, you're breaking a story. That's called breaking a story. And jokes might emerge that are right for that. And so they're put into place. You don't know until you reach the end and then go back. But eventually the story is written, beginning to end. Everybody's happy pretty much with the character arc. Then what happens is that outline treatment, really, because it's more than just an outline, is given to whoever writer it is for them to get paid that week. So when you see written by on a television show, that's really check was sent to. Okay.
But does it also mean that was the lead writer and the person with like final editorial control or responsibility for that episode?
No, everybody's on that. I mean, there's a head writer and they're the gatekeeper of but mostly, again, if everybody's happy, 14 people are happy with the story and 14 people who know comedy laugh at a joke, there's very little, I wouldn't say there's very little for a head writer to do because they're defining the tone of the room. But basically we're like, great, we got it, let's move on. So then what happens is that treatment is given to whoever writer it is turn to get the check. And then they go off and write the writer's first draft. Now that is the document that writer's agent can legitimately shop around as their own work because they have written every single word in there from a treatment. Yes, there may be jokes that were generated by somebody else, but maybe it made it in, maybe it didn't. Maybe it had to be revised. So they've written every word. Then everybody pounces on that. And after that, it's not that individual writer's.
There it becomes more collaborative.
Yes, much more collaborative after that. So, but then you have the second draft and third draft, and you have a table reading where you bring in the actors, and they what happens is they get the script maybe the night before, and then the table reading will be in the afternoon. They'll all sit around and they just read it. It's just everybody reading it and seeing how it goes, and then my responsibility was making sure that what worked and what didn't, and then we'd go back and revise it, and we'd go out the next night, and then it would be put on its feet, and you go to a rehearsal and you'd see the blocking of it. And one of the things I loved is a lot of times we would revise something that didn't work, and then it didn't work again. So we'd come back to the writer's room and say, okay, it's time to take out the improvements. And then you go through that process, and then that is like 4 or 5 days. So let's say, I can't remember the day, but I think we shot on Friday. So your first table read would be on Monday, and by Friday, you're standing it up in front of a studio audience. and then all the camera blocking has been organized by the director. And then
So those shows aren't just canned laughter. There's a real audience there.
I think the only shows that I don't know that any shows use canned laughter anymore. I don't know. But yeah, no, it's the laughter of that audience. And there's a stand-up who keeps that room alive. I mean, he's doing bits the whole time because you shoot a scene. Well, then you got to move the cameras, and maybe people have to change costumes, and or you're doing a scene again for some reason, and he has to instruct the audience. Okay, now pretend like you haven't heard this before. Because if I start to tell you a joke you've already heard, what do you tell me?
I've heard that one before.
Exactly right. You know what I mean? Tell me again. But the studio audience needs to pretend as if they don't hear it again, which they do. And that's these stand-ups who, they're almost always stand-ups, who are, in charge of the crowd and keeping that them alive, that they get them to do it.
Wow, what a production.
That's amazing. And then you do the scene again, or maybe it's perfectly fine. And, that'll come from the director. He'll say, yeah, I think I got all my shots, and, his team. And then you move on, and you generally work your way through from beginning to end so that the audience understands the story, so they can appreciate the jokes as they unfold. And if there is some sort of outside, like if they're going to be a scene that's outside the 3-camera studio, then they'll shot that before, and they'll show that video so the audience can understand how that fits into the overall story. And then it's the end of the night, and then it starts getting edited.
The audience is really watching filmmaking in progress. I mean, these are acts of filmmaking. At a very sophisticated level. And the whole show production.
And do you know who invented three camera shooting for sitcoms?
No.
Desi Arnaz.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yep. Use it on
very sharp man.
Yeah, very sharp. So I had
no idea.
I was on Paramount, and that's where they shot I Love Lucy. There's the Lucille Ball building and stuff. So
that's
very historical.
Amazing. That's neat. Well, I did not know any of that. I mean, I kind of heard the laughter. I asked you about canned laughter. I always thought it was canned laughter. I had no idea that it was real and that there was a stand-up working and all the rest. That's amazing. Do you know, I don't know if you feel comfortable about talking about it now, but about changes to sitcoms and the way they're made today?
Well, I'm not as familiar with that aspect of it. I just know there tend to be more single camera now. Versus studio, but there's still a lot of studio comedies out there, and they're shot the same way, the 3-camera. I never worked on a non-3-camera show. I worked on Bob, which is Bob Newhart's series, Good and Evil, which was my first one, which I didn't. That was only on for 2 weeks after I got on the job, not because of me, but anyway. But I did learn a great lesson there. I'll tell you that in a second.
Yes, I like to hear that.
And Cheers and Frasier, and those were all standard, 3-camera studio shooting. But Modern Family, that's camera. So I don't really know how those are shot.
Interesting. All right, well, I mean, I know things have changed a lot. I worked on some reality TV, which is not, of course, comedy, but I was very impressed when I did America's Next Top Model, which is we have the girls in the front, women, the models in the front van, and then we have a follow van with the writers rewriting the script. Whatever was being said in the front van is being transmitted to the second van, and they're rewriting the script in real time. And they're en route to the house where all the women are living, all these models. And there's a team of directors watching like all the cameras on a big wall of TV and in real time editing and rewriting the entire thing. It was pretty amazing. I mean, they're very sophisticated, a lot of these reality, any kind of TV show these days.
Yeah, they're not really reality.
No,
they're nearly scripted. Okay,
very.
Do it again, but be more mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. Now, tell me about this lesson you learned. I'm kind of curious about that. There's a lot of lessons to learn along the way in showbiz.
It's a very small industry.
Yes.
And you never want to speak poorly of anyone because you never know. The old joke is, be nice to people on the way up because you're going to meet the same people on the way down.
And then you won't eat in town again.
But the correlation, the counter to that joke is, oh no, you meet entirely different people on the way down, so it doesn't matter.
And you meet a lot of people on the way down, possibly. Yikes.
So, but I was told you're going to work with people, and everybody at that level is already going to be talented. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there.
That's right.
The question is, are they fun to work with? Because these are long days.
Now, there's an interesting point here, I think.
These are long days, and it's a very delicate thing, comedy. It's easy to tank a joke. It's easy to because everyone has doubt. Because, like, as I said, yeah, we all laugh, but you sure don't know if the audience is going to. So you want somebody who's going to be up and enthusiastic and positive and optimistic, not a Pollyanna, but someone who can, ride that line for 14 hours because they're long, long days. So I said, okay, so what do I say if somebody asks me about a recommendation? Because everybody's always sharing names, and I know that they're not fun to work with. I'll get to it in a second. So I was on a show, I'm not going to name any names, and for whatever reason, one of the writers just took a dislike to me. And in the writer's room, he bounced a hard rubber ball, and he threw that ball at me so fast that everybody else in the room went, what did you just do? You know, he didn't hit me, but it was like really, really odd. That show went down.
Oh my.
And I went on to Cheers. And now I was out of work and he was out of work.
Full circle coming.
And they asked me about that writer. And I said the phrase that I was told to say when his name came up. I looked in the eye and I said, who else is on your list?
Ooh, that's a good line right there. Yeah. Well, if that line is ever used against anyone out there, you will have to think about how to improve your personal relationships, professional relationships in the industry, because you are on a list now, right?
Because your brand is your name.
Yeah.
It's it. You know, we do Springfield and the Ozarks 48-hour film challenge. So there are a lot of young at heart people who participate. And we always tell them, please do not cheat. Do not try to work in footage that you've shot before. There are no secrets. People will find out. Somebody on your team will tell. Somebody from another team who you beat out will be sure to tell us that it happened. And because once you do, then your name is sullied. And that's how people are going to recommend you. They're going to want to know the shows you worked on, but they're going to want to know your name first.
This is an incredibly important point, really. I mean, how small the industry is, and since everyone collaborates, and yeah, they love to talk, and they're also very crafty and not talking or not recommending, and that's, I mean, the silence says it all, right?
Yeah,
that you can't get that positive recommendation. Kind of curious here. I mean, that's very interesting, first of all, but now I'm kind of curious your thoughts about the future, you know, of some story writing. And of course, we're going to go into technology and whatnot, and I wonder what your thoughts are about artificial intelligence, because a lot of people are worried about that. An AI can tell a joke, for example. Some of them, a lot of them, are actually pretty terrible. You know, AI doesn't have real good context, or, you know,
they're just starting out. You know,
I know.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about the future of you know, comedy writing and sitcom writing when you have these very powerful tools?
I think they'll be used that way as very powerful tools.
That would be good. I mean, a tool, as only a tool, would be great.
Right. And this is, you know, this was one of the demands of the Writers Guild, was that, you know, they if they were given a script that was initially generated by an artificial intelligence mechanism, that they worked on it, it became their script. Like, robots don't write scripts, people write scripts. So this is one of the, but if you're in an industry that doesn't have those kinds of safeguards, well, then maybe you should unionize, right?
Yeah.
So for protection, it would be ridiculous to say that it would never take over, because cars have taken over. When was the last time you walked somewhere that was 5 miles away? You have the
only when my car's broken down.
Well, exactly right. You have the legs to walk 5 miles, but you don't do it. The car is taken over. Now, our legs are not our mind, you know, and what we cherish and think of as being human, but we don't fly, we don't have wings, and yet we go thousands and thousands of miles and hundreds of miles.
Sure.
So technology taking over parts of the human body. You have glasses on. That's technology.
It's an extension, for sure.
Extension.
A prosthetic.
Yeah.
And these are going to be prosthetic, right? For our minds.
Yes.
For attention.
And maybe even replacements of them. Who knows?
We'll have to see about that.
Well, who knows? I mean, if it's entertaining, in a way, what do I care as a viewer?
Yes. But is someone trying to make a living?
What can I say? I mean, can you make a living in show business? I don't know. I mean, that was one of the jokes.
That's one of the big questions.
You can barely call it a business, right? It's so
barely call it a living.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, your script is with an executive, and they're championing it, and it's all about convincing others, because by the very nature of its existence, it hasn't existed before, because it's new, right? Because nobody's going to come in with the same script and say, well, let's just do this one again. No. So
Yeah.
so you need someone to say, to convince others, let's do this. I believe in this. Well, if that person, that executive at the studio, goes to another studio, is he going to be able to take you with him, or she? Who knows? That he doesn't, or she doesn't know what their situation is going to be over there. And the person who's going to move into his position or her position, are they going to love your script in the same way? Unlikely. It's a little bit like foster children.
And these are the sorts of dynamics inside show business, inside of the
Not that
film
there's
business.
some foster homes that are lovely. I
Yeah.
don't want to get a lot of
Yes,
letters.
I mean, some will love your script so much they'll just take it out from under you. But that's all the dark side. We won't go there. But I have kind of an interest in this technology and screenwriting in particular, because I kind of view it myself as a creative aid, and to take us in places our brains can't go yet, which makes me think about where there's innovation in screenwriting. Going back to screenwriting again, so like screenwriters like Christopher Nolan, when he writes a movie like Tenet, which just scrambles the brain. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's pretty amazing. I mean, writing that, or Inception, or Charlie Kaufman and the types of films he writes.
Yeah.
Or Tarantino, of course, he's basing his stuff on older, Japanese type of, chopping up time. But you have storytellers who experiment, and they're avant-gardists. They try to, push the limits of storytelling. I don't know that Nolan has used AI. I don't think so. I don't know how he writes really, but it's amazing. It's complex. It's brilliant.
I would invert your statement. Has AI used him yet?
Well, I mean, right? I mean, if they train on him, where will stories
exactly
go?
Right. Just train on Kaufman. Just train on Tarantino. Just train on Hitchcock.
Now those stories,
he didn't write.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But I mean, imagine what the stories would be like. I mean,
well, let us see.
Do we care? I mean, if they're that brilliant and great, and you're a writer that just uses the tool to extend your mind and go into new types of storytelling, then maybe that's a net good.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Every time a writer uses a thesaurus, do we have to reveal that? I hope not. But what's the difference? I'm relying on another tool that's going to give me 100, terms that I could never have thought of on my own for caring. Okay. Yes. I'm just not going to go to the trouble. And the book is there and exists. Well, what's the difference between that and asking a computer?
That is an aid.
As an aid. Now, but again, and this is where people are stepping up. I think Scarlett Johansson just said, you can't use my image. I think that's in the news today. Yeah, you can't use my image for your trolling.
Yes, and this is another thing. I mean, all this is going to have to be worked out. What to do with bodies and legacies and estates, and I mean, people are going to live way beyond their actual lifespans and be acting forever. Who knows? But it's all very interesting. It's all in flux too. It's all in flux. The types of stories we make, but they're still going to come back to the elemental, the primordial elements you talked about, like stories from which we learn. Stories that are transformative, that where characters change. And I mean, it all comes, whatever the form of the story, ultimately, it has to come back to something human, something really deep, or it doesn't resonate. Right?
So going back to my original question, why do I care who created it or how it was created? I mean, most people don't know, like you didn't know how shows were created.
Not really.
And does it matter? Is it any more or less funny now?
No, it still is funny.
Still just, or not.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Let's see. I mean, there was a book I read called "What Are Humans For?" Maybe we're finding out. Not for much, maybe. Because what do I care who created it? Now I care about the industry.
Yes, I was about to go there. The people who get paid and what they get paid. Yes.
Yes, but I'm not a labor unionist either, so that's already outside my realm.
And really, the folks who are arguing about whether it's a creative aid or if it's whether it's human enough or human driven enough. I mean, those are maybe secondary to the real issue that's bugging everybody, is who gets paid. I mean, who's getting paid?
Yeah, who's getting paid?
I'll tell you, may I ask you a personal question?
The technologists who are developing artificial
they will get paid for sure.
Yeah,
but I want, just for folks who don't know this, I'm kind of curious about it. And I'm were these shows lucrative enough to retire on? Did they pay out residuals?
I wasn't in a position to get residuals.
Okay, all right.
But if you're on a hit television show, or even a show that goes into syndication,
because most of those shows were syndicated.
Yes, yes. If your show goes into syndication, you're pretty much set.
Okay. And how does that work? Could you explain to people who don't know how syndication works?
Well, syndication works in as much as you've created this piece. like a
Like a
series,
TV
a television
series.
series of a sitcom.
Now you created means you had to be the lead writer on the team of 14 writers, or who's the creator here in this context?
Well, it's the producers, but it's also the actors. The actors and the producers are the ones who receive residuals. And so this was in broadcast television days. It's a little different now. I mean, there's a whole other realm, but old-fashioned broadcast television, it would show, and maybe it would have a rerun. Well, you'd get paid for the initial, showing, and that's a certain amount. And then a rerun, you might get a little bit less. Well, then when it goes into syndication, you get less, but you get it over and over and over and over because, like MeTV, they just show it over and over and over. Well, it's your performance, and it's your writing, or it's your production. So you should get paid because a new audience, or even if it's the same audience, they're still looking at the commercial that drives the whole thing, is experiencing it. New people are experiencing it, so I should get paid. Now, maybe not as much as I initially, was paid, but because I've been a part of something or created something that had longevity, I should get paid. And that's what a residual is.
And you have to be at a certain point, a certain position in the pecking order in order to get paid, to be participating. You're probably a member of the Writers Guild.
Writers Guild, Actors Guild, Producers, Directors Guild, above the line.
Above the line.
Yeah.
And so what is involved, or do you recommend people becoming members of the Writers Guild as soon as possible? Is that a universally good thing to do?
Yeah. I got into the equity, which is the Actors Guild, I don't know how many years ago, decades ago. I still have a card carrying. I still pay my dues. You never give that up. Now, I do have a fun story. I'll kind of pat myself on the back on this when I got my equity card. So it was a number of short plays that were being put on in an equity house. So there were probably 40 actors total, maybe across 10 short plays. And the director of the program had all of us sort of do a walkthrough of the performance. And we're all sitting there, and he looks at the group and he goes, well, I have one overall note. He said, you could be more brave on stage. Everyone could be more brave on stage. And then he stopped and looked at me and said, except you. Like, you were plenty brave on stage.
Dial it down.
Yeah. So, but that's nice. I love to be singled out. So, but yeah, I haven't given up my equity card. I won't give up my equity card.
And then your writer's card, the Writers Guild card?
I was not in the guild.
You was not in the guild?
No, this position on these shows, I was in the room, I was helping write the scripts and all the process, but it was like an apprentice situation, but I could have moved on if I'd not decided to move back to New York for love.
Love is worth it.
Well, yeah.
It may not pay us.
I don't know. Let's see now. I don't know.
But would you recommend to young folks who are watching and writers working their ways up in TV or film to go after a Writers Guild membership? I mean, you think that'd be worthwhile these days? Can you tell them?
I think any level of recognition and organization is going to be worthwhile. I would not, however, recommend holding out for that and that alone, because nowadays, like we were talking earlier, when I graduated Glendale, you had to go to New York or Los Angeles, or if you were a wuss, Chicago. That was the only place you could go in the United States and pursue your career. Now, that's not the case at all. I mean, you can have a huge following and you can create work, and it can be great work, and then get the attention of, what used to be the only gatekeepers, and now they're gatekeepers of a different style and type, and they notice you. But I think if somebody said, oh yeah, you've proven yourself, et cetera, we want you to work on a union show and you'll have to join the guild, I don't know why you would say no.
So that's very interesting and actually very positive view of things, and would be of interest to a lot of people who don't work in LA and New York who might be watching, is the prospects for a prosperous career outside of the cities now, out of LA and New York. I mean, you sound hopeful.
Well, I am, but we also discussed, here's my motto. Yes, you can work from anywhere, but you're competing with everywhere. So you may say, oh yeah, I like to work from Springfield, Missouri because it's this, casual lifestyle and it's inexpensive and I can have a fancier car than I would be able to have anywhere else in 6 times the space for my house and family. Fine, but the quality of your work has to compete with the person who's in London or Paris or Mumbai or wherever work is coming from.
You got to get above, and that's one way of getting above the noise is through quality. Yeah. There's other things you can do, like social media, having a social media presence, having a personal brand, these types of things.
Full frontal nudity.
Yes, which we broadcast delay, no broadcast delay. So,
Yeah.
Can we? No, we
Oh,
won't.
oh yeah. Oh, I think you can just like sketch out my clothes and just I can be sitting here naked. I think you can do that. Would you please do? Oh, oh yeah. Oh,
We're going back to
okay. You can black out parts.
our PG portion of the show.
Oh, good.
um, I wanted to take questions from the audience here. There were any questions here about screenwriting, things we didn't cover? And see, we got a couple people here. And by the way, this is our first time doing this, and we're so happy to have all of you watching. And this show will live on Facebook, and we'll put it on other platforms as well. So the pearls of wisdom you're showing are gonna go far and wide and be useful. But oh, good. Well, thank you all of you who are watching. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. So thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. Tom, I know you always have a question. Yeah. What burning questions do you have about screenwriting? Hold on a second. Let me give you my mic.
So let's say you have an idea, you've sketched it out, you've written out like just the script, right? Is it okay to send that out to like friends and say, hey, let's get ideas on that? Or do you think that it requires you as a writer to do um, more exploration in the script? Like keep writing it, go back and rewrite it again, go back and rewrite it again. What is your kind of process on that?
I believe you should get it to the best point you can. And that means you've thought through every single moment. You understand every character motivation. Your theme is solid. You love your ending. You love your opening. You think you've got the best opening line you've been able to come up with. Hemingway
so everything.
Put everything.
Yeah.
Hemingway rewrote the last line of one of his novels 25 times before he was happy with it. So, but you need to get it to a point where somebody's note will fall into one of three categories. Oh, they don't really understand what I'm going for, so that's a no. Wow, I'm taking that. And then, interesting. I hadn't quite. I thought I'd nailed that, but they didn't hear it or see it or experiencing the way I thought they would or should, and so I'll work on that. And I would keep it's a beta reader concept in the world of novel writing. You have a beta reader. You show your first drafts to your first really strong, solid drafts. No treatment, everything's written out. All the scenes are realized.
Right.
And I've had salons before. Through Sado 48, we've had development readings here, and I think people find it useful. At least that's been the feedback. And everybody develops scripts. Everybody shows them around and gets feedback. So that's what I would do. I'd get it to the point where you just don't think it can be any better without some outside.
So take it as far as you can take it before you go down the road of trying to collaborate with other people.
Yeah, and it's really not collaboration. You're getting their feedback. The collaboration would be you're working on it with them together. You're not. You're going to take their notes. You're going to go away, and then you're going to revise based on those notes.
Okay.
Jeff, are you saying also, I'm just hearing to my ear, that you want to have these sort of beta readers to kind of bounce off like it's on your little own personal group before you take it out professionally or take it out to to your final readers like agents or studios?
Yeah. Develop the script. Get 10 people to go, wow, this is from beginning to end. I couldn't put it down. There's a technique, I didn't think of it, but it's a great one. Like, for example, you're showing someone a screenplay. For whatever reason, and you give them the screenplay and those little yellow Post-it notes, and you say, start reading it. Every time you stop. For whatever reason, put a Post-it note there. If they can stop reading for any reason, you want to know, why did you stop there? Why didn't you just let your bladder burst to see what happens in this story?
So the script and Post-it notes is a script ready to film.
Yeah, no, a script with Post-it notes is a script ready to go back in and revise where the Post-it notes are. Why wasn't I holding their attention in this moment? Because that's really the essence of great work, is you just can't stop watching it or listen. Great music, you can't stop listening to it. or novels, you can't stop reading it. That's the thing. They're called page turners. They're called hits. They're called classics. You'll listen to it over and over and over. You'll dance to it. You'll have
Well,
memories around it.
I think you had mentioned earlier how, and it may have been before we were here talking on the live stream. Hello, got it. How little time you have to grab the attention of your
Oh yeah.
reader. I mean, it used to be the 10-page read and then the 2-page read.
Mhm.
So what sorts of things should or writers think about when it comes to that? I mean, how much do they need to pander to attention?
You have to engage your audience. That's job one. Not explain, engage. So an intriguing opening, something that makes me go, what in the heck is this about? And I can't wait to find out. And then on page 3, I'm like, oh, wow, they added a new element. And then on page 4, oh, look how they combined page 1 and 3 to pay off a little bit of 4. So I know I'm in good hands. They're not just introducing things to be introducing them to me. They're going to be mixed and matched, and there's going to be unusual outcomes that I can't possibly foresee, but they're legitimate outcomes because they told me what the elements are. I didn't in advance. I just didn't think they would coalesce in that particular way. And that's carried all the way through. And that's what makes it so difficult, because it's now 90 pages or 120 pages, it's considered feature length. But even with a short film or a short story, it's about, and that's why you cut through the noise, is you make people read the first word and then the second and then the third, and then they're not doing anything else except reading your work or looking at it.
So and this is probably part of paying dues, but maybe you can help people accelerate the process here. So when you're
By the way, I am doing a GoFundMe to pay my equity dues. So, okay.
Well, so about story quality and the question is, when do you know that a story is dead? It's just not working out and it needs to be abandoned. Do you get that sense? I mean, this is something you probably learn over time, but different stories have different sizes. The features a certain size, a short's a certain size. The ideas have certain sizes.
Yes.
And some are dead on arrival. Some just won't go anywhere.
And part of that is, there's lots of places to look. A lot of times a script isn't working because you're not very clear on the backstory. Every story that you read is really in media res, which means starting halfway or starting in the middle of something. And I don't mean that in a formal sense. It's like when you meet these characters, they have a past. They're not just springing, and whatever past it is that you have not cultivated yet, maybe why the story isn't working. That's one place to look. Another place is, are you following the 4 big C's: character, conflict, consequence, and conclusion? Consequence being the most important, because, and again, here, I might get letters about this, stories are not about good and bad. Stories are not about morality or immorality. Stories are about cause and effect. That's it. Don't go any further, and then you won't be worried about confusing an art with the artist. It's the cause and effect aspect of the story that matters, because that's how our lives are: cause and effect, inescapable. You don't do something and there's an effect, a cause. There's a consequence of not doing it, or you do something and there's a consequence of it.
Now I have a follow up there, and which is I just some of the and this has a little bit to do with genre, but also with story writing. Some of the best horror films I've ever seen are the ones that happen in daylight. Because it's it's unusual. Things usually happen. Bad things happen in the shadows. And
some really good things. Oh yeah,
yes.
PG-13.
Well, the question is about Deus and Machina, or how you pronounce that French. God intervening. The random, chaotic, thing that happens that a black hole opens up in the middle of the street and sucks the entire town down. Right? These sorts of things. They can take a script in a different direction, a story in a different direction, but do they ultimately not resonate and feel cheap? Where's the room for chance?
Has it been set up?
Well, this is my question: cause and effect. Cause and effect. Sometimes these things have no cause.
Well, in real life, they have no. In real life, we're just subject to whatever fate throws at us, if that fate even exists.
Sure, and we're talking about story logic, right? Not in plot holes, potential plot holes, and whether something's motivated.
Yeah, and so, but that's just a place to see whether or not you don't know your backstory well enough, so you're not supporting what this other half, this half that's going to be seen by people, that you're going to show to them, and will resonate for them, because, oh my gosh, when this character in this scene says this line, I'll take you where you need to go. They don't mean to paradise, they mean to the van with no windows in it, right? And so I'm terrified for them, because I know what they mean, but the character doesn't know what they mean. But I only know that because this character is going to be murdered, grew up in a very naive setting and was never taught to fear strangers. And now, but if I don't know all that backstory, if I haven't been introduced to that or touched on it, it doesn't resonate with me nearly as much. And I'm not keyed into the perception gap between the two characters. So you're screaming, "Don't get in the van,"
Interesting. And well, this is also a good way to look at things where you don't to cut off the fat and keep things, grounded. I mean, there's no room for something without foundation, right? I mean, I think I'm hearing that also.
Well, this is not original with me, but I love this quote. What your main character wants doesn't have to be possible. It just has to be concrete. Otherwise, you couldn't tell the story of Don Quixote, because what he wants is impossible. That's not a dragon. That's a windmill. Dulcinea isn't a princess. She's a whore. But for him, it's concrete. And for all of us who are, endeavoring after things that we may never have.
Citizen Kane, Rosebud.
Yeah. So
or other
with the concreteness of it, not the likelihood of it happening or even the possibility of it happening. That's not necessary, but it has to be concrete. Otherwise, the viewer can't know how close or far away the character thinks they are, which is the internal world of the character, and how far away they really are, which is the plot.
Interesting. I find this all fascinating. I've asked a lot of questions.
Everyone else has fallen asleep, so I'm not sure.
No,
but you know what?
It passes back to the back for another question. Huh? Yeah, go for it. We have a microphone right here.
Knowing about Jeff's background, I've been doing a lot of studying on sitcoms, especially classic sitcoms. Been fascinated with Bill Lawrence and the process and ideas of the things that he does and the guts that he had. And I have to ask for anything modern out there or anybody like a Bill Lawrence or a Chuck Lorre that you would inspire to say you should watch this person and see how they do things.
I think
good question.
I think only, and this is a full disclosure. I worked with Chris Lloyd on Frasier, and then he went on to create Modern Family, and I think that was a solid, funny show with a lot of new, not necessarily new, like the looking to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, but a lot of vital components and a big cast. They're serving a lot of characters when they write those scripts. And it was a Modern Family. There was everything. There was the age difference. There was the cultural difference. There was the human sexuality difference. There was the intelligence difference, among all these characters. So it was a modern mix. That's one. One of my other favorites is we like Young Sheldon. We think it's very funny. Let's see, what else do we watch? Not Modern Housewife. Yeah, Modern Housewife, I think. That was fun. The fish out of water story. She's in, this Tony town in Connecticut. But what we were talking about before you came in, because you were late, is when you're developing.
Schitt's Creek is pretty fun.
When you're developing it, say again.
Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got that sensibility.
Oh no, I want you to see what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes. Guys, I'm
I
sorry.
got confused.
Yeah.
The conflict among your characters, right? Everybody has to have a conflict with somebody else. And all these conflicts need to be different and unsolvable. In Frasier, once the father and Frasier get along, we don't have any comedy. We don't have anything. Blah, boring. Who cares? People getting along. Ugh. That's what I want in my real life. That's not what I want to watch. So in development, because that's what it sounds like you're in, it's what are the characters, but more importantly, what is the conflict among all the characters? And I say among all the characters because one of the problems that we had to solve over and over and over was, how do you get the home life and the work life together? Right? How do you make that bridge? Because that opens up stories. And for somebody who's writing, I don't know if people write spec scripts anymore to try to get the attention of writers, because I think in the Writers Guild, there's still a requirement that they use an outside script, not from an existing. I don't know if that's changed or not, but the guideline that I got when I was writing spec scripts to try to get the attention of the producers of existing shows was, don't add any new character. Don't take them out of the situation that they're in. The Golden Girls suddenly, are 20. But find a new facet to the existing conflict, or a way for two characters who, like our home and office, find a legitimate and interesting way for them to now have a reason to have a scene together, because that would open up all kinds of new storylines down the road for those writers who are going to be building off of your script that did that, much like scientists and others using existing patents to create new things. So you become really valuable if you demonstrate you can analyze their show and go, oh, this is an opportunity because they're so close to it and they're under production and you're not under production guidelines. I mean, deadlines. Ah, he saw something or she saw something we didn't see in our own show.
So
I
you're
want to know
taking off
more about them.
taking off in the right angle. That's
It
valuable.
doesn't even have to be a right angle. It can just be a relationship or a conflict that hasn't existed yet. Because once you uncover a new kind of conflict, all kinds of new storylines result from that. Because you can take that conflict on its face, you can take it on a trip, you can take it to a dinner party, so it's always, oh my gosh, they're going to be in the same room again, it's going to happen all over again, but with new lines
Sure.
and in a new setting. But we didn't have that before, and now we have that. It's a hook. I've got another hook.
And at the same time, you're kind of keeping it within the universe.
Oh, you must. I mean, my mother could write something if it didn't have to make any sense.
Let's get her a job, one of these shows. Now, I have a question
She's a lovely person.
about
And if you don't buy the third condo in Hawaii, we're putting you in a home. She better be one of the five. She better be one of the five watching this too, by the way. Her caregivers know how to get her online.
Okay. Which leads me to the next question about irreverence.
Oh,
and the limits of irreverence.
There are no limits. How did I start this out? This is my safe space to do and say whatever I want. Okay.
Well, let's go there.
My safe space.
You should feel very safe now because TV has become much more lax in what you can say. It seems like it. Certainly seems like it. So that's freedom right there.
We could say bastard once, and we could say bitch once, but we couldn't say either one of them twice. You could say one and then the other, but neither one of them twice. I mean, it was all.
I would love to know how those rules were set.
That's how all those rules were set.
Ah,
yeah.
Interesting. But now, I mean, you do have a lot more freedom to be irreverent and push the limits on network TV. I mean, cable led the way, but do you feel the freedom? I mean, this is kind of a great time to be more, to push the limits.
Sure, and explore the comedy of voices and people that we just didn't hear from. I mean,
what about irony and snarkiness? I mean, there's a market for some of that, but
but that's always been the case. But now it can be among people of different ages, of different colors, of different sexual orientations, of different income levels. It's just expand. For example, during the whole Hays Code of the 50s, even married couples who are married as characters couldn't be shown in the same bed. They had to have two twin beds. Well, that's all gone away, and so that's just one example of a clear-cut, classic example of just a general relaxing in society around these things until recently. But anyway, it'll swing back, no problem. But so that's the thing that, and that's where comedy comes from, right? These opportunities to reflect on what's going wrong for people, but what the expansion is really, yes, you can talk about more things. More things are, dinner topics still, but from a variety of people, wider variety, more representative of this country, this crazy cool country,
and then now
which I like to call not the identical states of America, but yes, the United States of America, until recently. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, comedy now is kind of the trusted, coin of the realm. People go to comedy for truth. They go to comedy for news.
Stephen Colbert,
yes.
Instead of Walter Cronkite. I know he's dead, but it's kind of funny. That's because
it used to be, the actors are buried outside of town, like face down. Underneath them was a comedian. Now, like actors are on the top. Very high up in the social ladder.
We went to the Museum of Carnival Arts in Paris, and the reason carnivals had such loud calliopes was because they were not allowed to go into the city limits. So to let people know the carnival was there, they would just crank that calliope and you could hear it for miles around. And then people knew, oh, the circus is in town. They would come outside the city limits and enjoy the circus.
bringing in everything that was outside the standard, like sort of way of living, right? The circus was freedom. The circus was different ways of,
It's the thing you run away to join and not your father's business.
yeah. And now comedy offers us those sorts of outlets, right? And comedic writers. So let me ask you, like someone who wants to make a career in comedy writing or comedic television and so on, what would be a smart play to develop a career? How would they go about that?
Be funny.
That's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, be funny.
Anything else?
Be prolific.
Prolific. So do a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
A
don't
podcast. Maybe?
don't get married and have kids.
Oh,
I'm,
okay.
I'm almost not kidding.
Really?
I mean,
You're gonna be on the road?
It becomes you're on the road. You have to take opportunities as they arise, irrespective of their remunerative value. Like I'm not getting paid, but I'm going to work with somebody that's amazing. I'm taking it. You know, well, the kid's hungry. Well, the foster care program almost works. Let's just get him into that. And then 25 years later, when I'm great, he'll come back. He'll be pissed, but I'll have the money to put him in therapy.
I mean, it's a long range plan. Sure. Yeah. I guess it works.
That's what family means, John. It's have
Yeah.
long range plans.
We got a question over here. Yeah.
Yes, I am the devil.
I'm getting that. I'm getting some of the vibe. And I've talked with you about this before, but I'm really curious because you said you brought up something about being funny, right? Is that a nurture or nature in your opinion?
Good question.
It is nature, but it can be nurtured. I mean, you can learn the craft of comedy, but can you ever just naturally be funny? I don't know. You can get a great hairstyle and a beautiful skin, but if you're 5'7", you're not going to be a model. So you better be really funny. I mean, you can be good looking and 4'9", but so you're never going to be 6'2". So, but it doesn't mean that you can't get better, because that's what people do. They get better, they learn, they study. It's just, are you going to be drawn to that if you're not that? I don't know. Because I never had a choice. I really didn't. I looked around. I went in 6th grade. I looked around and went, oh, two kinds of people get ahead in this world: good-looking people, for which they have to do nothing. It's just the way the chromosomes sloshed around in the mother's womb. And people with a personality, and especially the class clown, and especially the class clown who could make a joke that was so funny the teacher laughed, because it was very difficult to spank you while she was also laughing. Now, some people pay more for that now, though. Oh, PG-13 all over again. Anybody, if they don't get it, then they don't
I'm
get
not
it.
worried
If they
about
do
it.
get it,
That's
then they're ready.
So, and as a
Exactly.
follow up to that, if you do find a talent that you are funny, how easy is it to translate that into writing?
Not easy at all. If it was, everybody would do it.
Right.
Because
what's the missing piece?
We were
What makes it-
discussing earlier, because you were late too, that there is a number of story criteria. You know, you can't have coincidences. Why can't something just happen because it's convenient for the writers? Because it doesn't carry meaning. And the classic is when somebody overhears something. Oh, how convenient. When was the last time any of you overheard something that really, really mattered? Now, I don't count going through someone's cell phone. That's not overhearing. That's taking action, which is fine. But just coincidentally overhearing what you need to know as the character to make your next move. It's BS. It's easy writing. It's because it doesn't carry meaning, because it's not about the way our lives are really lived out.
So just going through your memory here of like comedic scenes you've seen over your career, what are some scenes that stand out for their cleverness, that you really like the way the comedian or the writer did the scene?
Well, I used this when I was teaching sitcom writing at NYU. It's the 5 minutes of Niles when he is getting ready for a date and he sees a little crease in his pants that needs to be ironed, and by the end, the entire apartment is on fire. That is one of the it's considered the funniest 5 minutes in television. It is, but it is the classic build. You, first of all, you know him, so you know this is not going to do it, right? And his meticulousness. And there's even one moment where he has to get some scissors, and he's in a hurry, and he's running with the scissors, and then he realizes he's running with scissors, and he slows down and he puts the points down, right? So you just, all these little things. But that is about the tightness, and build. this is another thing that I think is a little bit, and I can't prove this, but when somebody finds out that, and who would not take the money and who would not take the opportunity, oh, I have 7 episodes to tell my 30-minute story, which is often what it amounts to, and they drag it out, and then, oh my gosh, there is no pace. It's like, oh, and I was watching one, and I'm watching, and I'm thinking, how in the world are they going to make this whole episode answer all these questions that they previously set up? Well, indeed, I watched to the end to see if they had that episode. Nothing that happened in that episode had anything to do with the conclusion.
So when you're writing multi-episode comedies, like a comedic series, the arc, the character development, the characters are well fleshed out, and they live their lives over episodes. And the comedy is just like their sort of way of dealing with the world, right? That's sort of the punctuation.
Well, that's the situation in situation comedy.
Okay, but when you're writing something like that, when you're writing across many episodes, you know, it's not that much different than writing a drama, right? It's cause and effect, but the punctuation and the way they deal with things is odd or off and comedic. Right? That's kind of how you're looking at it.
And a lot of times after the hiatus, when you're starting the season, you'll have a meeting, have a group meeting. We're talking about, here's where we're taking the show. Here's the direction we're going in with the characters. And by and large, that's adhered to. But again, when you're under production deadlines, and sometimes we would get a little behind and we'd have to split the team. So one team would be going to the table reading and rewriting this episode that was in production, and the other would be working on the script that's next in line. So you can kind of get behind, but because you're under these deadlines, do you stick to the arc? It's just a suggestion, but it was often talked about on the better shows.
Very interesting. Hey, I just want to make a mention out to anyone watching online. If you have questions, because I think we're monitoring the feed, would you please send your question in the chat, and then we'll read them over here and have Jeff respond to those as well. See someone new in the back there. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming by. You're interested in screenwriting. Would you like to have a question for Jeff, a burning question you need answered right now by someone who's been around? All right.
We're going to
that
call
guy
it,
has time. He is timing, comedic timing.
We're doing our own version of the Late Show.
So
yes, please. Microphone. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
You didn't bring your own microphone.
We can hear you.
No.
That's fine.
This is for the live stream. Go ahead.
Okay. So it's kind of off the topic, business type related, but if you've never written before and you want to write something and show it to somebody in the industry, how do you protect yourself from having ideas or scripts stolen?
Right. You can't protect your ideas. Ideas can't be protected. But the fully executed version of that idea, which you have registered with the Writers Guild, East or West, depending on which part of the country you're in, and also through the copyright program of the United States, that's how you do it. Now, the next thing you do is you get an agent to submit it. And how do you get an agent? Through diligence, through making your work known. And there's a jillion ways to do it now, which it didn't used to be. It used to be you had to send an unsolicited script to an agent and then they would read it. Now you can take this script that you've written and find a team of people who will do a 5-minute trailer of it and put that online and have people go, wow, and do a GoFundMe. I mean, I joked about that before, but this is where people are getting things done and produced. And then somebody will notice you. It used to be you had to go to the industry. Now the industry is looking for you. And if you have original work, they will find you because 1,000 other people or 10,000 other people or 1 million other people will have found you. And if that's not happening, well, then maybe your work isn't so original.
I mean, this is really where social media shines and where you as an individual can develop your own personal brand and promote your comedy out there and put it out there for people to see, professionals like agents who would take you on. Again, the gatekeepers don't quite have the sway they used to. I mean, they're still there. They're still agents and whatnot.
Sure.
But
My dad used to say there's only one thing that keeps me off television, the producers. Yeah. Good old dad.
No,
Dad, 12 years. But anyway, I'm
that's
still
a great
working it, Dad. I'm still working it. He can't hear me. He's dead. People say, oh, what do you think about what happens to you after you die? I said, well, the same thing happens to you after you die that happened to you before you were born. Nothing.
channeling a little Bill Hicks here. Very dark. No, that's interesting. I mean, it's just a question about business and how
Yeah.
people get off the
And
ground.
that's how you protect yourself. You just you write the piece out fully. It's not a treatment. It's not an idea. It's fully fleshed out from beginning to end. Every word just as you want it to be that represents your best work. Register it with the Writers Guild and have a copy written.
And we also spoke earlier about reputation. I mean, if you do get ripped off, I mean, people, I mean,
It
with
can
jokes-
happen.
with
How do you keep your
circulators-
car from being stolen? I don't know.
No, but it's a
Park
trashy
in the
thing.
garage.
I mean, comedians stealing from comedians is like severely frowned upon.
It is frowned upon, and that's why now you have a lot of comedians making everybody put their cell phones into bags that cannot send out signals or be used as recording devices. But a lot of times we do change our world because of bad actors, right? And that's just the way it is. One bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. Girl, I think that's the lyrics. I wasn't calling you a girl. What, David? What are you, just airing your underarm? Don't raise your hand when I'm talking unless you have something to say. Gosh. Oh, wait, Hawk has something to say. Go ahead, Hawk. Oh my gosh.
Wait, we are in-house producer, the man at the back.
But you know what?
control board. has something
Let's
to say.
did that answer your question? Oh no, you can copyright whatever you want, whatever you want. But I do recommend you do that before you send it out into the world. But before you send it out into the world, we were talking earlier, you two were like, the thing to do is like have a reading. Get some actors, put it there, hear what the words sound like, feel what the pacing and the rhythm. Do your scares work? Do your twists and turns work? Is there really an emotional viewpoint on love that we haven't heard before exactly this way there? Or is it just like, oh, well, that's just another love story, right? And that'll all come out in the wash, when you really get it on its feet, shoot a trailer. Because again, we were talking earlier, expensive equipment is inexpensive now, and people really know how to use it well.
Yeah. And also, just for background, if you don't know this already, but for other people listening, I mean, when you create the work, you create the copyright. You own it. It's your property. It's intellectual property. You own it from that moment on. Whether or not it's stolen or, purposed for other things, that's another question. But there is also an argument that the more you put yourself out there with your work, the more you're known for that kind of work, that style of work, the less it's not as hard to steal from you that style when it's that particular to you.
So the answer, how do you keep your car from being stolen? Always be driving it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to steal it.
What?
It's like
What are
you
laughing
own it.
about? Oh, have you stolen his car? Okay.
Someone
Oh, okay.
Someone stole your car when you was
when you're
driving
up
it.
here.
Only here. That's what that would happen. Hockey.
So you were talking about that clip of Nas, also one of the greatest clips ever made. I always thought it was a reminiscent of a John Ritter, one of the greatest physical comedians of all time. And it makes me wonder, it's so rare now to see that kind of physical comedy. And I feel like, is it still there? Do you think it is because writing has changed or because comedy has changed?
I don't think comedy or writing has changed. I just think the physical comedians are elsewhere. And who knows now? There are so many places to look. It's not, there's not just 3, 10, and 27 anymore. There's not broadcast television where everybody has to watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at the same time at Christmas. You can pull it up whenever you want to. And that's not even what's on the internet, and where there are a lot of very funny comedians, physical comedians.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, like all the places to go these days, we're kind of curious about your thoughts about this very fractured landscape about where you would go and sell your wares. I mean, you can sell the stream. I mean, I guess, the Netflix and the streamers, and I mean, there's all these different platforms, or set up your own YouTube channel, right? Try to become a comedian influencer, so on. I mean, what do you make of all this? Where do you get the traction to get above the noise? Because there's so much content out there.
Just be driving the car the whole time. It's like any career. You just have to not get married and not have kids and not have a girlfriend or a boyfriend unless they're very understanding and will scratch your back whenever you tell them it's itchy. And that's that. And it's because it's about you and this vision. And again, you just got to go do it, and nothing else will do. Life is unimaginable unless you are doing this. And if you don't feel that, do something else.
All right. Wow. Well, that's how you know you're right.
We have a question from online. Sorry.
Yes, please.
Please finish your thought if you need to, though. I did not get your attention.
No, that was a great closing line, but go ahead, David. What's the next question?
Anyway, this is from Isabella. She says, hello, thank you for coming, apparently. I'm a BFA acting major at Missouri State University. As someone who was also an actor, and this is a two-part question, how did you find your experience in that field help you and inform your writing? That's the first question.
Oh, to be an actor?
How did that help you inform your writing? Yes.
Well, because
Thank you, Isabella.
Yeah, thank you, Isabella. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone here. Are we done with that part?
We're done with the
boring
thank
part?
you.
No,
Isabella.
thank you.
There is a second part of the question.
Well,
Answer
not
that
yet.
one first. Yeah.
I'll get confused. I'm not a genius.
No
actually,
double-barreled
but-
questions.
How did your
Yeah, how to
acting
be an actor? Well,
experience?
because you
help
read
inform your writing?
lines. First of all, let us start with an example of something poorly written. It doesn't make any sense. Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this as the actor? And now, again, it's one of the reasons I think that everybody can be in a flop. That's not guaranteed. But a lot of reasons that you go to see movies with established actors in them is because they have some pull. It's like, I'm not saying that. This doesn't make any sense.
Incompetence, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, but also just, it's that, but just also just maybe sloppy writing, unskilled writing. So, but the actor is responsible for the character moment to moment to moment. So if the moments don't work in the script on paper, that would be the reason why.
And this is why a bad film, a badly written film, can't be saved even by a great actor.
Often not. If the
Yeah.
story isn't there, I mean,
Yeah.
you'll have individual scenes and individual moments, but you don't walk away going, wow, I've been transformed.
Yeah.
What was the
Part
other part of the
two?
question?
Part two. If you can hear me right? All right.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Part two of the question is, secondly, how exactly can you get your finished work out to producing companies?
Is Isabel still on? If you're still on, can you clarify a bit by producing companies? Do you mean distributors or buyers?
Oh, production. You want your script produced?
She just says finished work, so I'm
Okay.
imagining that's
Well,
correct.
one of the ways is to raise money. So that
Yes.
that helps, and have written a script where you don't have to raise that much money. Like if your first script is okay, so like the plane explodes and then the million people come out, and it's like, okay, how are we going to feed 1 million people first of all on the set? So have you written a script wisely? And often your first one isn't. Often the first one is from your heart, and that's fine. But the second one needs to be, oh, wait a minute, how about 1 location and 5 characters instead of 6 locations and 20?
She did
because-
just clarify by saying distributors or those who will take a chance to actually make your show.
Well, everybody is taking a chance to make a show. I mean, it's it. It's, because again, before everybody wasn't here, John and I were saying, by definition, what that you're asking them to put money behind hasn't existed before. It's new by definition. It's like, oh look, here's my script. It's called Casablanca. Well, yeah, it's Casablanca. Well, we already have a Casablanca. What did you change about it? Oh, nothing. It's exactly the same. Okay, well, we want something new, right? You want new. Well, new is untested. New is untried. New is what people are responding to, but sometimes not. So
really great material creates its own demand.
yes.
I mean, it's new,
original,
it's
right.
original,
Yes.
it's high quality.
Now, maybe not so original that no one's ever seen it before. Maybe you move the needle just this much, and people are, oh, look, here's a brand new take on the love story. We know people love stories. We've never seen this particular love story. This we could do. So, but it's also just a crapshoot. I mean, again, you have to want to do it, and part of the having to want to do it is having to know the business side. Now, I wish I'd spent more time on the business side. I slept with every single person I could. None of them were in the industry.
That's clearly a
I
strategic
should have
error.
asked that first thing and not just gone with, as Dante said, love enters through the eyes. I should have not gone on their looks. I should have gone on what they could do for me.
But I mean, that's okay. That's a valid, maybe there was a strategic error there on your part. Okay. Maybe there
And not
was.
maybe. I'm sitting here, aren't I? I'm not saying this during the Vogue party after the Academy Awards. I'm here at Studio One. But anyway, I'm happy to be here.
Isabella, going back to your question and taking off of where Jeff is going right now, there is an incredible demand in show business in Hollywood for original new material. There's always that demand, So if you've written something that's original, the cream rises to the crop. I mean, the producers, production companies, streamers, networks, whatever, they're all looking for that.
That is the advantage.
I mean,
if you're new, great, new blood. It's
absolutely
an industry who needs that. So there's things against you, but there's also a big thing for you. And they're looking. Just
They're actively
please
looking. They go
make it
everywhere.
Great.
Yeah.
Just make it great.
So now the question is where to connect. Where do they intersect? What can a new writer, new creator like Isabella, where can they go and meet these people? How can they get their attention?
Well, first of all, she's in school. So
Mhm.
milk that. Go to every single event. Go to every single mixer, figure out how far you can afford to drive. And if there's a film festival there, go see the kind of films that are kind of like your movie, find out who those producers are, have the script ready to hand them. I mean, you've got to work it. No one is going to come knocking on your door saying, hey, do you have a great script? It just doesn't happen.
Isabella, that's all great advice for anyone really starting out.
Just work it. And there'll be the traditional routes, which you should also work. You should be trying to get an agent in a legitimate way, figure out how to write a query letter, find out what that agent, who they represent. This is sometimes difficult information to find out, but not always. And then all the non-traditional ways, like one I just described. Go to film festivals and see who's making movies like yours. And maybe, hey, I may have the next script you want to write. It's in the same genre you kind of love. Would you take a look at it? They'll see that it's registered and copywritten, so they're not going to take it from you. And then, and who knows, make sure, and then stay in contact with them, keep following up. Because it might be 2 years before they take a look at it.
Yeah, and it's worth saying that those random interactions and encounters and those relationships that you build can really take you places. I mean,
unless they're not in the industry. Again,
unless you choose poorly.
Don't just sleep around. Sleep around with people in the industry. If I'd only known that. But anyway.
Well, we were all learning from your experience. Yes. Yeah. Or
Sado, which again, I can't say that. Go ahead.
We got another question here in the front.
Paul Coleman, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you were saying the traditional way, right? The traditional way is to go the Hollywood route, and
the agent
and being the massive mix of those people with what would you say the odds of getting something done are? But if you go the traditional route or the non-traditional route, which is something that you've basically established here in Springfield, is a very non-traditional route of being able to produce something that you write. And do you kind of think that, I kind of think I know the answer, but do you think that's the better way to do it now? In today's, like, if we're talking like today's culture, do you think the non-traditional route is the more
it's the more
fulfilling route?
It's the more, I was going to say this, it's more immediately gratifying because you are, for at least a period of time, in charge. Now, if somebody says, okay, great, you've a year, you've put out great 5-minute films, and you put out great 20-minute films, and now you got a 40-minute film, and it's also great. What do you have that's at 90 minutes? You're like, here, this is what I got at 90 minutes. I can't afford to make this. I'm going to need help making this. Well, then you've given over some of your autonomy. But so what? Your film's going to get made. So start where you can. I mean, as we were saying earlier, you were late. That you have when I started out, when I was 18, you had to go to New York or Los Angeles, or if you were a wuss, you went to Chicago. There was no doing anything from here. From here, you could raise and harvest corn, I understand. That was it. Maybe milk a cow. You had to leave. Now you don't have to leave. But,
you're competing against the rest of the world.
You can say again?
You're competing against the rest of the world.
That's right. You can work from here, but you're competing with everywhere. So again, it always goes back to great work and great effort. And if you don't want to do it, and my mother said to me, how can you be rejected so much? It's like, she just doesn't understand how you can give somebody a script and they go, I don't like it. I'm not doing it. That wasn't funny. You're too tall. What's that big nose you got? I've heard those things.
So,
and not just nose either, by the way. Again, didn't do me a bit of good. I think I've established that.
Might have needed a doctor.
Thank you.
And speaking of doctors, I want to talk about script doctoring.
Yes.
Or improving our work, the development process. Okay, so you're not in New York, you're not in LA, you recognize the fact you need to improve your work, produce quality work to get ahead, right, to move up and be recognized. What are some effective ways to make your work better when, you may not have access to the literary agent to help you out?
Go to a library or a bookstore and take the thinnest book on the topic, the thinnest, it doesn't matter what it is. It'll have 10 things in there you've never heard before and you've never applied to your work. Read that book 1,000 times over and over and over till it's just part of you, and then apply those foundational aspects of great storytelling to your piece.
The thinnest book on
The
storytelling.
thinnest, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
They all say the same thing. It's all about character transformation. It's all about character conflict, consequences, and conclusion.
What about participating in like workshops or
Sure.
roundtables?
Yes,
these sorts of things.
Once you have something where the audience, where the feedback that you get from the audience, where you like, with the audience.
Oh, this is for anyone else is listening.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot
Yes,
there are other people in the world. So that you where you get it to the point where the feedback falls into one of three categories. You don't understand what I'm doing, so no. That's a great idea. I'm incorporating it right away. And this kind of interesting, gosh, storytelling is complicated. You were supposed to think that that was a legit person and you saw right through to the fact that they were my villain in disguise. I need to go back and look at that, right? I didn't see it. I was too close to it. But those are the three categories: yes, no, and maybe.
Because you put on a script writing workshop now and then, I understand. And this is part of your process to help people recognize the, this could be better, this didn't hit.
No, part of my process is first to find out if they're in the industry.
All right. Okay. All right, fine. Everyone. All right. So getting back to the screenwriting.
It's PG-13 because if you're 13, you probably don't even understand.
We got a 13-year-old. Did you get it? It's like,
Yeah.
she did.
She's a highly precocious 13-year-old.
That's our focus group back
Yeah,
there.
that's right. No, so yes, what was the question?
So the process. You're okay. These,
Oh, yes,
these,
my
these,
process.
these script workshops you hold, and just I'm just trying to give people like a little process they can use to try to kind of filter through their work and make it better, right?
Yeah.
Some sort of method, right? So a method would be like kind of divvying their work up into stuff that hits, that doesn't hit, and like
Another aspect, people want to write memoirs. I'm like, did you stab Lincoln? Right? It's like, have you really done something that's worthy of a memoir? Now, the better thing is to mine your own life for those periods where you wanted to kill yourself, kill somebody else, or you're just on top of the world and nobody was ever going to touch you. All those things and everything in between, and put that into a character, and don't care about what really happened, except that it is an inspiration based on real life. And who cares about your real life? Nobody, not even you probably. And make that character come alive because of that reality.
now that's an interesting question. There are the issues of cliche. Things are contrived, have been done too much. The Jerry Seinfeld, they're like whatever is like meaningful. Is that all tired and passe, or is it still
No.
there's still something there to mine, you think?
Well, again, if it's about the human condition, yeah, there's something there to mine. And again, it doesn't have to be that different. It just has to be different enough where people go, I mean, there is no new love story. I mean, there are new love stories, but the love story isn't new. There are great.
Yeah, there's so many stories in the world that are available. We're
Yeah,
just repeating them. Yeah.
But again, with more voices and more points of view, you get angles on them that nobody has seen or done before, and
pretty
that's
neat.
enough to make it new.
Yeah. Another question here. Yeah, go for it.
So if you let's just say that you've never written a script before, and what is the tried and true, in your opinion, what's the tried and true ploy, story, arc to get started on? What's the one that always works in your opinion? Like you see that
have a secret.
it's a secret.
Have a secret.
Yeah.
This
Have a
series
deep-
is about giving up
Have
your
a deep,
secrets.
have a deep, a secret that you have not told anyone, that you are so ashamed of, and you are living against every single day of your life, and then put the reveal of that in jeopardy.
Okay. So write something about that. Like just basically have that as your ploy of the whole piece. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
good one to start.
Well, because people will do all kinds of things to be
Oh,
not
sure.
found out as an embezzler or an adulterer or or an orphan, or
This is
anything.
the gun and girl theory of comedy, like Godard. Like all you need is a gun and a girl, maybe a car to make a movie.
Yeah.
Here you just need a secret.
Well, but that's where it starts. I mean, that's just,
Tarantino's. Oh,
Yeah.
Tarantino. Well, he stole it from Godard. He stole a lot of stuff, though.
but that's just the start. Then all this has to. How is it going to unfold? How is the even the possibility for the main character to realize somebody might be onto him or her? You know, how does that happen? When does that happen? Does it happen on page 1? Well, then I probably don't care. I have to see this normal life, this beautiful, let us say, this beautiful normal life, and then suddenly somebody says something, and I see a change, or I read a change in the character, and I'm like, uh-oh, that person's world is unraveling right in front of me. I gotta find the next page, and then the next page. And so it's the execution of it. But you can start anywhere.
So how important is it then in that process to know the ending before you start writing?
Before you start writing, you probably won't know the ending, but you might. And if you do, that's great. Write it down. But even before that, you'll know your ending because you'll have explored your theme.
Okay.
And your theme, the best advice I ever gave on that was, what is your story about in 25 words in terms of character, conflict, consequences, and conclusion? A person who has a secret, character, who has somebody who knows his secret and is afraid they're going to tell, right? That's the conflict. The consequence. Who I'm going to kill and get away with it. You got those 4 things, you have your ending. Or I'm going to get caught. Or I'm going to find out they're in the industry and we're going to be fine. I'm going to milk that 6 more times for anyone who's watching. But again, it's the and that's the thing you should be doing, because you're always working towards something. And when I hear like, oh, there's an alternate ending, really? Not if it's a well-told story. Stories can begin anywhere, can only end one place. Everything you tell, everything you have happen is just this ricocheting down the pinball, alleyway to that hole right there, which is your conclusion.
Getting back to the point here, like,
By the way, that was not a metaphor.
This idea here you just had about the kind of, may know your ending is at, you might see that. And I think it was maybe as Mahler, the composer, said that when he wrote a symphony, there was a flash of lightning and he saw every detail of the canyon, in that flash, and he remembered it, and then he would scribble all his music down. I mean, do you have, or is that something that can be, is that a way to go about writing, is like trying to have an overall view, or do you kind of like painstakingly go 10 pages at a time and get to the next point, and the next point, and the next point? Do you ever have, it's not a very well-formed question, I'm sorry.
No,
but
that's okay. You were late.
Yes.
The process is different. The process is different. I'll just say if it doesn't make any sense. Because you know what? You can get a laugh on that too. To tell him it doesn't make any sense. And yet it's a pattern.
No, but the flash of inspiration where you see the whole
Right.
versus
Now,
the painstaking.
This is not original.
agony.
This is not original with me
Yeah.
either, but I remember it.
Yep.
We cannot force epiphanies, but we can hang out where they tend to happen. And a lot of that is your attitude. You are not locked down on this must happen now. You realize that your story is malleable, that your characters might behave differently than what you want them to do. In fact, characters that behave the way you want them to are probably not going to be a very good script anyway, because they need to take over. And it's not this kind of mystical taking over. It's that their backstory is so well formed, they have to do this thing this way. It's fated for them, as the character within the story guidelines, overall guidelines of transformation. But knowing the theme, like the 25 words, what helps with that is, well, do I want them to do this or this? Both seem to be very, very good options for how they might behave. But because of my theme, which is the subtext, nobody's ever going to know what that is, it makes more sense for them to do this, because that action is just slightly more in tune with the ending that I know I'm barreling towards.
And do you have a method? I mean, you talk here quite a bit about actors and the inevitability of what they do. Do you have a method for generating interesting actors?
Yeah, AI.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a creative assistant. Oh.
I did not know this existed. I recently saw Carol O'Connor's last episode with his wife, which is one of the softest, most tenderest women I've ever seen in my life. And I was wondering, is there ever, because I know you lean toward comedy, are there any other tender, great moments like that in comedy that you've either been a part of or seen or written or think that they're just great and perfect, even though it's in a comedy?
No. Nope, nothing like that. But thanks for bringing up the sadness of my life, Hawk. I really appreciate you asking that question. Nope, just the clown that cries when no one's around. Thanks for being here.
Seriously,
No,
now
but
you
yeah,
there
no,
must-
seriously. Yeah, no, I'm not that unhappy. I mean, tonight. But it is. But we were saying earlier, you can feel. Did you cry at that moment? No, exactly right. Exactly right. You don't. Okay, fine, but you don't have to cry at a great drama. You must laugh at a great comedy. It's not. It's something else if you're not laughing. It's humorous. It's witty. It's whatever. But you have to laugh if it's a comedy. But you don't have to cry if it's a drama. You can still enjoy a drama and not be teary. So from a physical, corporeal response, that's what makes comedy, in my opinion, more difficult than drama, because it has to contain all the storytelling components of drama, and you have to laugh at it.
Very curious here. Like, there's you're from, I think it's Ace Ventura, Pet Detective 2, which is
Yeah.
there's
Genius.
yes, genius, absolutely. He's crawling out of the back end of a rhinoceros. Jim Carrey's character is. He's been hiding in there. He's I guess working undercover as a
I thought
PI.
you said this was PG-13.
I think that's PG-13. That's where I'm
Crawling
going.
out of the ass of a rhinoceros.
And
This is not an original joke, but I got to tell you, the guy who's in love with his proctologist. So he goes for his examination, and the doctor says, "Sir, there are a dozen roses up your anus." And the guy says, "Read the card."
and this is where I'm going again. Back to irreverence. Irreverence.
It's a good one.
The roots of
It's not my joke, but I didn't write that one, but it's a great joke.
So the irreverence in risk taking and writing, and as we're pushing the limits of comedy and having more voices, more diverse voices, is there such a thing still as a third rail anymore? You think? Are there things where we can't go?
Sure, but and a lot.
How
of
would you
times
handle that in writing?
that? A lot of times that just has to do with well, there's that old the comedy trope, which is comedy is tragedy plus time. You can tell a joke a little too soon, but
Jokes
it's
that's
still
for-
but that's still your province as the performer. If you don't like me telling a joke too soon, then go tell it later. And who's to say? Few people can be bent out of shape about something, but some people are maybe just really loving it.
No, the comedy of like Lenny Bruce or Sarah Silverman, or some of these folks, you can't, it's more difficult to do that kind of comedy these days. There's the risk of being canceled, David Chappelle, and, you have to be more mindful of what you say, getting back to your irreverence.
Oh,
I mean,
yikes.
well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
there's issues here is what I'm saying.
yes, but of all the professions, the comedians have pushed back the hardest. Sorry, if it's funny, it's going in. If it's not funny, it doesn't belong in the routine anyway. If I'm just saying something to get a rise out of people or to trigger them, that's not my job as the comedian. I have to making the teacher laugh, right?
Making the whole world.
That was so inappropriate. Well, then why were you laughing?
Or making the whole world laugh.
Yeah, I mean, the whole world. I mean,
We're looking up to the
let's say
comedians
4
for
million.
laughter.
Yeah, no kidding. This is my original joke. They say laughter is the best medicine, but that's for people who've had their insurance canceled. So but
Yes.
again, it is the job of the comedian to push buttons. It's the job of the comedian to have people look at things in new ways that are funny and maybe inappropriate and maybe uncomfortable. And yes, there are levels of, what you can say on television, but what you are perfectly fine to say on streaming, paid services. So, yeah, I mean, and everybody's going to get bent out of shape about something. Whoop-de-doo, you're in the world. Am I happy with everything that I hear? No, of course not. But so what? Who am I?
And this gets to the free press.
No, that's my
a little
question.
bit.
Who am I?
Who are you?
Oh,
You're,
that was a- that was
you're
a
a guy
question.
who tells irreverent jokes.
Yeah, that's right. There we go.
Borderline NC-17.
We did not
I'd say.
rehearse that either, by the way.
No, we did not.
You were right on it, John.
We're gonna have to wrap up here in a few minutes.
Oh no, it's only been 2 hours.
It's only been
Shoot.
2 hours, but it's been interesting. I mean, I think I've learned a lot.
But it's been interesting, he says.
Yeah, I
Go
think it's
ahead.
been interesting. I think it's been useful. I
Well,
think.
Okay. go
Well,
on.
I mean, great. Not. I
Try
mean,
to wrap
good.
this
Good.
up now that I've
Good.
said that.
Good. Not great, but you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Oh wow. Wow. Good. Not great. Okay. Well,
Yeah, I don't know
fine.
who
I
said
can't wait to
that.
get back.
Oh my
and tell
god.
my friends about the show. Yeah.
We'll fix it all with
Yeah.
whiskey.
Okay.
I want to just all the stuff that you've written over your career. I just wanted to ask you what moment that you wrote you're proudest of.
Oh,
What's
I would think I would say
Why?
the title of my one-man show, which was A Baptist Boy Trapped in a Jewish Boy's Body.
Let's explore that.
Yeah. Well, and this was long before being trapped in another body was a thing, right? Nobody. So it was in its own way. That was obviously we knew that was out there, but you know, I look Jewish. I walk the streets of Paris, New York, Los Angeles. Hasidic Jews come up to me and say, "Would you join our minyan?" Like because they have to have so many people to pray, and like they think I'm one of them. I don't know where they get this idea, but anyway, I was walking around the Jewish neighborhood of Los Angeles because I like to walk a little bit, not be in the car all the time. And this old woman came up to me and said, "Are you Jewish?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Well, you look," and then just walked away. What was the question?
That's the comedic. That's the writing you're most proud of. Is that title?
No, yeah, that title,
Yeah.
and then the fact that it was my first time out, and I did get a very positive review in New York City, in a tough market.
Yeah.
But they spelled my name wrong, Clinkenbeard. Clinkenbeard, again, Jew. Yeah. So I send the guy a note. And
Who is the cabaret? You got some awards from cabaret group.
Oh yeah, Manhattan Association of Cabarets.
Was this the same
This was
award?
that show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Who are these people? I didn't know there was such a group. The Cabaret Critics of New York. I mean,
Yeah.
very niche.
Yeah, very niche.
Yeah.
And so I wrote him a note saying, it doesn't really matter to me, but my mother's going to read this review. And he did a whole correction with my name and all that kind of stuff. And again, the remaining
What a
shows.
mensch.
Yeah. Clinken Barge. That's like, that's not it either, dude. No, that's a joke. Ha!
Hey, Jeff, are you going to have a writer's workshop soon? Screenwriting
Sure, why not?
workshop? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so we're going to publish that, and we're going to wrap this up here tonight because it's going on 2 hours. And
Oh, only 2 hours. Well,
Only
it's been
2
good,
hours.
but not great.
no, you've been great, and we all learned a lot in pieces.
Well, maybe you learned a
here and
little.
there. But we hope we have to sign off. We really do.
I get it. No,
And
I
it's
know the
been
internet
fun.
costs money.
No, there's no money. It doesn't cost anything
I know,
at
but
all.
yeah, that's what.
Yeah, we're just burning up electrons, but we're trying to keep them at a good 2 hours, and just want to say thank you.
Thank
so
you.
this is our first time doing this.
Yes, and can I plug Sato 48?
Please do.
Registration opens January 17. Or doing 100 teams in 100 days, and on April 26th, you would make your movie, and then we'll be at the Moxie. We'll be at the Gilloys for the awards ceremony. Big red carpet blowout experience, dress festive.
Yeah,
So
it's really
look
great.
for more information about Sato 48, Springfield and the Ozarks 48-hour film challenge.
Perfect. That's wonderful. And we did it last year personally. My family did, and it's a kind of a family experience, and it's a great place to develop first time or continue building your filmmaking skills.
Now,
So
John,
highly recommend.
are you trying to let me know that you're in the industry?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, we all are. All of you.
We gotta go.
We got to go. Thank you all for joining in online. We appreciate you. Everyone who came out tonight. Thank you for your time, taking time out to come out on a weekday evening. We really appreciate it. We're going to do this again. We do the Creator Series once a month with a professional who works in somewhere in the filmmaking industry, who shares their secrets and insights and their personal journey in showbiz. So, Jeff, thank you very much for joining us for
Thank you,
our
John.
very first one. We'll have you back again. We also have a podcast called Outland Filmmakers. It's a little bit different angle from the Creator Series. It's more about personal journeys, but we go more in depth about tying in what's happening today in show business with individuals who are working in show business. So join us on Spotify or your favorite podcasting platform. It's a production of the Ozarks Film Foundry. And thank you all. We'll see you again soon.
Good night.
Good night.